Recently, I made a video with some suggestions on how to prepare for an audition. On the audition rubric, a category called center of pitch and intonation is listed. What is the center of pitch and intonation? Basically, the term pitch refers to how high or low a note is. Like on a keyboard, low notes are on the left, high notes are on the right. Pitch can mean any note, and even in between notes. Center of pitch and intonation are closely related. Intonation refers to the pitch of a note, and if it is the same frequency as a given note, like A440. A440 refers to the tone that is produced when something vibrates at 440 waves or cycles per second. Cycles per second we call hertz. A440 has become a tuning standard when it comes to tuning things like pianos. I like to think of the pitches on the trumpet as if they were on a piano and just advancing forward to the high notes instead of seeing pitch as a ladder, having to reach for the notes. It's a mindset that I find doesn't depend on confidence as much. How is intonation and center of pitch related? Well, it's hard to be in tune if you're not playing in the center of the pitch. On the trumpet, we can play lots of notes with just open fingerings or other fingerings. When we refer to the different notes played with the same fingerings, we call those partials. If you are playing in the center of the pitch but are still out of tune, or not playing with intonation, you can push in your tuning slide if you're flat, or pull the tuning slide out if you're sharp. This is also true for single notes. Below staff C sharp and D are notoriously sharp on trumpet, but we can use our first and third valve slides to achieve intonation. However, you must not rely solely on the tuning slide to stay in tune. It's important to keep every note in the center of the pitch and then adjust accordingly. It can be easy to begin playing with a closed mouth and be sharp, thus pulling the tuning slide out to compensate. This is a visual representation of the center of pitch. It looks a lot like a bullseye. The middle circle represents the center of pitch. Horizontal aspects describe open or closed mouth, and the vertical axis represents sharp or flat pitch. Here's the best center of pitch concert F I played during warm-ups this morning. It mostly has resonance and a free sound. This is what it sounds like to play above the center of pitch, causing it to sound sharp. This is what it sounds like to play below the center of pitch, causing it to sound flat. When you play above or below the center of pitch, you're still technically playing the note, but you weren't using the optimal setup and airflow to have the best sound, and are most likely out of tune. When I form my embouchure and fix my oral cavity to a specific vowel and put the horn to my face and blow, I want to hit the center of pitch every time. It's common to hit above or below, just below the center, and then slide into the center. A great remedy for this problem is to hear the note in your head first. I like to call it your mind's ear. You can hear it in your mind's ear, kind of like your mind's eye. Finding the center of pitch can be worked on by practicing long tones. And practicing long tones doesn't mean shutting yourself in a dark room and playing notes for a certain amount of time. You have to listen to the sound you're making. Manipulate your mouth to see if you're reaching the center of pitch. Elevate or depress or advance your tongue, open your throat, relax, or elevate your jaw. Finding and playing the center of pitch for one note is one thing. Playing the center of pitch for all the notes in the range is a real challenge. We're told to play the range of notes on a trumpet with various vowel shapes. O, ah, and e. When we play lip slurs, we're told to play the lower notes with o, middle notes with ah, and high notes with e. In general, for beginners, I think that's a good starting point. However, reaching the center of pitch transcends these simple vowel shapes. Each note must be played with its own slightly altered vowel shape. For instance, if your concert G was the pure ah, then maybe a couple notes above that would be ah. Is not really a ah or an o. It's kind of like a gel when we're talking about or states of matter. Is it a solid? Is it a liquid? It's kind of a gel between o and ah or e. Sometimes when you're getting into the higher range, you don't necessarily have to go e. Maybe it's eh between an ah and an e. Eh. And you'll have certain vowel shapes for each note. When we move notes stepwise, the oral cavity contracts or expands very gradually. The tongue moves in a more fluid motion. When we move notes in a skipping or jumping fashion, the tongue moves up and down quickly. You can try whistling a few different notes and see what happens with your tongue. If you can't whistle, you can still get different pitches of air to sound if you move your tongue around. I like to use my hand to show where my tongue is. Right here is if this was the bottom of my mouth. The tongue is all the way down. When I begin to go up in pitch, if my wrist is the back of my tongue, it begins to go up. Low notes, mid-range notes. When I get to around the end staff C, my tongue, the back that's elevated, starts to shift, and the middle to front part of my tongue is moving forward. And I'd even say that it's getting closer to where my teeth are. So the back will elevate and advance forward. Methods for working on finding the center of pitch in notes played in stepwise motion include Clark 1 and 2, major and minor scales, and the chromatic scale. Methods on finding the center of pitch in notes played in leaping or jumping motion include all kinds of lip slurs, arpeggios, and flexandos. I think of lip slurs like trombone players and how they move their slides to various positions. Every position they have to move to must be reached as quickly and accurately as possible for the note to sound clearly, in tune, and on time. I think this is similar to the notes played on the trumpet. Your mouth has various shapes like positions that have to be formed quickly to play the notes when they need to be played. You could also think of that video going around online for a long time where a segment on a game show has a contestant strike a certain pose so that when a wall comes at them with a hole cut out in a specific shape, they don't get flattened. Low notes on the trumpet have very wide partials. The lips are quite relaxed when playing low notes, so it's easy to slide around the center of the pitch. It takes a lot of discipline to play these low notes as long tones and manipulate your jaw, tongue, and lips to find the center. We all know that high notes are played when the lip vibrates faster. So how can we achieve that? You might have figured out already that high notes can be reached when you shove your mouthpiece into your face or use your octave key. But this only works for a couple extra notes, and then the pressure becomes so great the top lip stops vibrating altogether. It's also likely you're not playing with an open oral cavity, pinching off the airstream, and thus not reaching the center of the pitch. Playing high notes in the center of pitch relies on technique and keeping an open oral cavity. For myself, when I start to get around the instaff D and E, my tongue has elevated in the rear and is beginning to advance towards my lips. When this happens, I feel a spinning core of air between the wall that I've made out of my tongue and behind my teeth. Right there. This core applies resistance against my diaphragmatic airflow. I have to push the air through this core to reach the higher notes. I like to warm up playing notes in every partial as quietly as I can while still making a good sound. This allows my aperture to focus, and I can tell how it feels to play each note without expending a lot of energy to make it loud. As it is with pitch, dynamics can change the way that your mouth is set up. If you're playing loud, things are going to feel different than if you're playing really soft. When you play long tones with dynamics, you are training your lips and mouth to know how to change to make sounds louder or softer. Ultimately, the ability to play with less pressure and more flexibility will make it easier to play the center of the pitch for the entire range on the trumpet. Don't be afraid to change your setup. If something's not working, go on and change it. What's it going to hurt? Small moves can make a big difference. The more you work on it and use your ear to the best of your ability, the more likely you will be able to play through the center of the pitch.